Welcome to the Goodyear City Council meeting. We're excited to have you be a part of this important public process. Tonight, you will have the opportunity to address City Council on both non-agenda and agenda items. You must fill out a speaker request card in order to address the City Council. The agendas and speaker request cards are located in the back of the council chambers. Please drop your completed card in the tray next to the blank speaker cards. If the meeting has already begun, please hand it to the city employee at the back of the room. You may check the "I do not wish to speak" option on the card. This allows you to let council know your opinion without having to speak. In accordance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, please contact a staff member if you need any assistance. Public comment on a non-agenda item will take place during the citizen comment portion of the evening. These are items that don't appear on tonight's formal agenda. The city clerk will call your name when it's time for you to speak. At that time, please approach the podium and tell us your name for the record. You'll have a maximum of 3 minutes. The timer is on the screens visible from the podium. Note that you may also choose not to speak if other speakers before you have said what you wanted to say. Shouting, cheering, and loud noises will not be tolerated, and violators may be removed for disrupting the meeting. Goodyear City Council meetings stream live on Facebook, YouTube, X, and online at goodyearaz.gov. Follow the city's social media pages so you don't miss out on all that's happening in Goodyear. Thank you for coming to this meeting and being an active part of your city. And remember, it's a great time to be in Goodyear.
I'd like to call the regular meeting to order for April 29th, 2024. Please mark it present. I suspect Bill will be here, so I'm going to hold off on the excuse until we'll see if he pops in, okay?
Okay.
All right, with that, would you please join Vice Mayor Cano in the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation?
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the assembly today to discuss city business and to hear from our residents. Give us the wisdom to make sound decisions to move the city towards the future. We pray a special grace for our police and fire who've been responding to an increased number of incidents recently. We speak peace over our city. Bless our public safety and local military members as they serve us and keep us safe. We pray for their emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being. We ask this all in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Now is the time for citizens who would like to address the City Council on any non-agenda items within the jurisdiction of City of Goodyear. Any speaker cards?
Yes, Mayor. Linda Davis Waters.
Please come on up. The council will listen to comments, make any of the following recommendations: respond to criticism, request that staff investigate and report on the matter, request the matter be scheduled on a future agenda, limited to 3 minutes, and the red light will let you know when you get 20 left. And just your name and whether you're a citizen of the City of Goodyear.
Linda Davis Waters, and I live in Pebble Creek,
That's all
here
you
in
need. You don't have
Goodyear.
to give us an address. Okay?
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to share some of my concerns regarding economic development in Goodyear, given the new developments in Surprise and the proposed developments in Buckeye. I recall some years ago, Goodyear entered into a contract with to build a regional mall with a mall developer. I think he was the same mall developer that developed the Scottsdale Fashion Square Mall. And I know that contract was amended and subsequently negotiated down from a mall to just 3 pads. And I think one of those pads is our great Harkins Theater. My concern and questions are, what is the current strategic plan for economic development in Goodyear? And I don't know whether there is an overall macro plan or there are developers who approach you as our leaders on a one-off basis. But I would be interested to know if, in fact, there is a strategic plan and if that plan is shared with those of us citizens here in Goodyear. And I'll tell you one recent example, and one of the reasons why I'm speaking to you this evening is there was a plan contemplated through a notice for an amendment to the zoning ordinance regulation related to convenience uses, self-service storage facilities, automobile repair, and automotive gas stations, use permits and special permits. And as it's presented without a public notice or a public hearing, that was something that we just absolutely could not support. And finally, I would respectfully ask you to consider in the future holding biannual meetings with the citizens of Goodyear just to share the overall strategic plan with all of us. So we have some idea of, obviously it won't be completely, in the can. You may have not approved certain things, but it would be helpful if we actually just had an idea of what that whole macro plan looks like. So those are my comments, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, I would, Wendy, can you talk to her as she goes out? That's our Economic Development Director. What I want to let you know is what you're seeing right around here is just the beginning of a downtown area in the city of Goodyear. We've got several. The mall isn't going to happen. Those are dinosaurs. But the person who is working around here right now, Globe and Red Development, are working to take that road from where the mall is, where the where Harkins is, all the way to Bullard, and you're going to see mixed use north and south of that, all the way to McDowell.
That's good to know.
So that's part of what's being worked on right now. There's a lot of new businesses that have come. In fact, I've got about 3 sheets. I don't have the time right now to go through all of them. But when I get out in front of some of the members out in your community, I have that information with me to explain. But there is a strategic plan. What we're trying to do is bring quality amenities that you've been asking for years.
Yep.
In fact, we've got High Tide being built right now, which is a quality seafood place that you can see when you first come in.
Yep.
There's an Over Easy that's going to be part of it.
Yep.
We've got several other things in the work. Well, we made the mistake early on with the mall is we mentioned that, but without signatures or stuff there. We're not doing that anymore. If you hear something coming from us, that means they've signed an LOI and it's good to go.
Okay, great. That's
so
good to
Wendy
know.
can explain some of that, but we do have a website, if I'm not, Wendy, that explains all that you may want to go and check out. But there's a lot of things going on in the city right now that you can check to see on the website.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mayor. I have frequently looked at the website, and
Okay.
that's why I just wondered if there was a more macro view of it. It lists things that are coming and obviously new businesses in the area, but it would be great just to see it from a more holistic perspective.
Wendy will talk to you, and she's our Economic Development Director.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Anything else?
No, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Let's see what we have here. Will the city clerk please read the consent agenda items 1 through 10 by title only?
Number 1, approval of minutes. Number 2, appoint members to the Ad hoc Charter Review Committee. Number 3, approve a new Series 12 liquor license for Popo's Fiesta del Sol located at 15375 West McDowell Road. Number 4, approve a new Series 12 liquor license for Macayo's Mexican Food located at 1474 North Litchfield Road. Number 5, approve a new Series 7 liquor license for Bacchus Wine Bar located at 1971 North Globe Drive. Number 6, approve expenditures up to $2,400,000 for the replacement of sewer lines located within the Corgate Wash. Number 7, approve the intergovernmental agreement with the City of Glendale for fire and medical service staffing for special events. Number 8, approve the intergovernmental agreement with the State of Arizona through the Department of Child Safety to provide integrated services at the Southwest Family Advocacy Center. Number 9, conditionally approve the final plat for Thrive at A Vision Goodyear at the northeast corner of West Van Buren Street and North Central Avenue. Number 10, adopt resolution number 2024-2402, approving the designation of applicant's authorized representative form to be submitted to the Arizona Department of Emergency and Military Affairs, which designates Finance Director Jared Askelson as the city's authorized representative for applying for certain public assistance and authorizing the applicant's authorized representative to execute and deliver said application on behalf of the city of Goodyear.
Thank you. Does anyone on the council wish to remove an item on the consent? Seeing none, we can get a motion in a second, which I see. We have a motion and a second up there. No discussion. Let's vote. Passes 7-0. Thank you. There are 4 public hearings on the agenda. First public hearing to consider an amendment to the zoning regulation. Open public hearing. Please introduce yourself to the public.
Good evening, Mayor Pizzolo and City Council. My name is Christian Williams. I'm the planning manager here with Goodyear. And I'm here before you this evening with a city-initiated request to do a zoning ordinance text amendment related to townhomes or R1A. So the city has recently experienced a revitalization of townhome construction as well as requests for rezones to allow more townhomes. Nearby, the Civic Square development, just north of Monte Vista, there's a mix of housing product there, including townhomes. And in fact, between 2017 and 2023, approximately 9% of all of our housing stock was missing middle housing, which includes townhomes and courthomes. In 2023 alone, approximately 102 single-family townhomes were built and finalized in Goodyear, which means approximately 285 new townhome residents now call Goodyear home as of last year. Most recently, you may recall the Las Brisas townhomes rezoning request for new townhomes and the Ascent at Canyon Trails rezone for townhomes. Both developments were seeking to develop an alley-loaded townhome product and required a PAD overlay to accomplish that. PAD overlays on top of R1A can be a laborious process as opposed to a standard residential zoning district. And additionally, the city does have some areas that currently have R1A hard zoning or R1A within a PAD, but to develop an alley-loaded product, such as the ones that we're going to be talking about today, that would require a rezoning process. So in working with our development community on those PAD overlays, the developers sought for narrower lots with higher building coverage. They wanted alley-loaded garages, and in exchange for having less open space on the individual parcel, they wanted to have more open space in the community for public amenities and gathering spaces, as well as adding streetscape elements. These requests, again, for trade-offs are very similar to the process that we employ right now for our R14 and our R16 reduced lots. Again, where you have a smaller or narrower lot with less open space on the physical parcel, but in exchange for larger community spaces. So in creating 2 PAD overlays, that Las Brisas PAD overlay and the Ascent at Canyon Trails PAD overlay, as well as listening to the Planning and Zoning Commission and Council's desire and the stakeholders' desire for more missing middle housing, we did hear from a developer who wanted to bring a Verrado-esque type product to Goodyear, and their current zoning would not have permitted that, which would have required a 4 to 6 month rezoning process. So as a result, staff is bringing forward this zoning ordinance text amendment just to do that. The planning team is very committed to working with our development community in order to bring forward solutions for housing our growing population. And if approved, this text amendment will make it easier to develop a variety of townhouse product, which adds to housing diversity, affordability, and new housing choices for our growing city. To summarize the changes within this text amendment, it would allow our typical R1A townhouse lot to be reduced in width from 35 feet to 20 feet. And in doing so administratively, the developers would need to provide 2 amenity elements and 2 streetscape elements. If the lots are between 20 and 30 foot in width, a third requirement would be needed, and that product would need to be alley loaded. The zoning ordinance text amendment also codifies standards for streets and layout design, private patio wall heights, and guest parking requirements. Again, this ordinance allows by right the R1A zoning district to have a new type of housing that does not exist today, thus increasing our housing supply, adding more missing middle housing, and follow standards that we have already approved for other R1A underlying zoning districts. The state has been looking at means to supersede local control and add housing diversity and affordability, which largely ignores citizen views and local control. But this ordinance is a local government solution to do just that, adding housing diversity that does not ignore citizens and allows local solutions to be in place. So with that, staff recommended approval to the Planning and Zoning Commission. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted 6-0 to forward a recommendation of approval to the council. And if this were adopted, it would make it easier to build townhomes in Goodyear with R1A reduced standards. We did receive a letter of support from a member of the development community, and that letter is attached to your staff report. And with that, happy to answer any questions you have about the ZOTA.
Thank you. We'll just hold on right there. We'll see if we get something for you. Can the city clerk please read ordinance number 2024-1607 by title only?
Actually, Mayor, there's no speaker cards, and if you could go ahead and close the
Okay.
public hearing then.
Closed. Now, can you go ahead and read the ordinance 2024-1607?
Adopt ordinance number 2024-1607, amending Article 2-2 definitions to add the definition of alley loaded, amending Goodyear zoning ordinance Article 3-2 residential districts by revising Table 3-2-3-A development standards, single-family districts, and footnotes to enable the creation of reduced R1-A development standards, modifying 3-3-3-D design requirements for residential districts, R1-6, R1-4, R1-A, R1-C, and modifying Table 3-2-3-E, lot size and minimum number of required design elements for reduced lot width and side yard setback reduction requests, creating footnotes to enable the creation of reduced R1-A development standards and clarifying minimum lot area, amending Article 6-2 general parking regulations by clarifying driveway lengths within 6-2-2 residential vehicular access, providing for correction, severability, and an effective date, and directing the city clerk to record a copy of this ordinance.
Thank you. Will the city council please enter a motion and a second, which I see already up on the board. With that, I'm going to go ahead and open up for discussion. First up, Councilmember Loretano.
Thank you so much for bringing this to us. I think this is an important piece that we are missing. I think when you describe it as Verado-esque, so the public knows kind of what we're talking about here. A lot of these type of communities are owner occupied. People buy them. They live there. They're a good different type of house to live in for someone that might want to own a property, lock and leave it. They often have, little courtyards or and a garage right there, so it's not like in a multifamily where your garage might be away. It's right there with your house. So I think this is a really good housing stock to have, and I appreciate the one you showed us, that there will be amenities, community amenities, and for community events and to make that sense of community and neighborhood. So I totally support these, and I'm glad that you saw that hole and y'all fixed it.
Vice Mayor?
Well, like Councilmember Loretano, I'm happy to see this project or this amendment come forward. Question, this amendment could then either bring in houses for rent or for sale. Is that correct?
That's correct. Any single-family district would allow a rent or sale, but they would need to be platted on individual lots.
In order to be for sale?
That's correct.
Okay. And do you believe this amendment would incentivize developers, making it easier to build them for sale?
Yes. For example, right now, there's some entitlement right now for R1A lots. If that developer did find a builder to build that type of product, they could bring that to market much quicker.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, there's not much more to add except to say that the state's been after this to try to get some more affordable housing. And right now, unfortunately, in Goodyear, to get starter homes, they're very, very expensive. I think these type of homes will make it affordable for young families or those people that try to get into the business of home ownership, and a little more variety that we have on there. And I think home ownership is really what I'd like to see more of. So with that, let's go ahead and open it up for voting. Passes 7-0. Thank you, Christian. All right, let's see. Next public hearing is to consider is a use permit for convenience use. Open the public hearing. You back again.
I'm back, but just for an
Okay.
introduction this time.
All right, go ahead.
I'd like to introduce my colleague, Justin Gabrielson. Justin has been with the city for almost 2 years now, and he was just recently promoted to planner last week. So this is his first presentation to council, so I'd like to introduce you to him.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thank you. As Christian said, my name is Justin Gabrielson, planner with Development Services. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'll be presenting for a use permit for convenience use drive-through within Goodyear Civic Square. The 1.46 acre site is located at the northwest corner of McDowell Road and North 150th Drive. There's a star in the middle of the map to indicate the location of the site. It is within Goodyear Civic Square, also known as GSQ. For a brief zoning history of the site, the Greater Goodyear Civic Square development was rezoned for mixed uses back in July of 2019. This lot in particular was zoned for commercial use zoning. Since that time, several buildings within the core have been developed or are in the process of being developed, including City Hall and the Gen 1 offices. Since that time, several buildings within the, repeated myself. While this project is not within proximity of residential and normally would not require a use permit, the GSQ PAD has drive-through uses requiring a use permit, and therefore the PAD overwrites our zoning ordinance and requires a use permit for this use. For more clarity, the GSQ letters are at the bottom right at the southeast corner of the site. The site will provide plenty of spaces for vehicles waiting in line. There are 2 queuing lanes with 24 total stacking spaces before the first stopping point, exceeding our required standard of 6, as well as 9 total spaces between the first stopping point and the pickup window, exceeding our standard of 4. The building is made up of 1,100 square feet of indoor dining, as well as a 600 square foot patio. Renderings of the building are provided on the slide. The west elevation faces North Civic Square. The south elevation faces West McDowell Road. The north elevation facing the future Desert Flower Drive, and the east elevation facing North 150th Drive. The building matches the colors, materials, and architecture of the existing office buildings, City Hall, as well as the current buildings under construction in North GSQ. It should be noted that the site contains a direct pedestrian path off to North 150th Drive, a path to the north of GSQ, as well as 2 paths to future sites to the west. The drive-through will contain 2 forms of screening to further block potential visual and/or noises of the drive-through operation. A mesh-wired screen wall with growing vines that matches what is used for our existing garage, and a masonry parking screen wall that matches what is being used for the buildings in development to the north within GSQ. The 2 forms of screening will alternate across the entire length of the drive-through, providing visual barriers across all public roads. The picture here on the left shows what the steel screen panel will look like when it's originally built, and the picture on the right is what it will look like when it's grown out. In an enlarged aerial of the site, you can see the existing access points off of West McDowell Road. The development will also create a driveway off North Civic Square, as well as a new road named Desert Flower Drive off of North 150th Drive that will provide access to the site from the north. Here's an enlarged site plan overlaid of what is currently existing. The site can be accessed from a right-in, right-out driveway on West McDowell Road that leads to a right-in off of North Civic Square. The site can also be accessed in a right-in, right-out off of North 150th Drive onto the future Desert Flower Road, which allows for a left onto North Globe to access to the site from the north. We're currently working with traffic to remove the existing double yellow line down the center of North Civic Drive to allow guests to turn left out of the site and exit south towards West McDowell Road. Staff has evaluated the impact of the proposed use permit to the greater community based on the use permit criteria. The use permit and the proposed use is reasonably compatible with uses permitted in the surrounding area, adequacy of the parcel size and configuration to provide proper access and internal circulation, required traffic mitigation measures, and other concerns. Planning staff, as well as Planning and Zoning Commission, both recommend approval with the stipulations provided in the staff report. I'm here for any planning and zoning related questions.
Thank you. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Would you like to say anything at this time? No, thank you. You're good? Okay. Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Any in the audience like to speak? Yes? Come on up.
Ken Hubble, resident of Goodyear. So at the last planning and zoning meeting, they mentioned the traffic. There were some concerns about traffic, especially off McDowell Road. The comment, I believe, was made that, we're going to address that with the owner or the manager of the restaurant if that happens. To me, that's not really sufficient planning. It seems that we would address that before this is approved as far as the traffic considerations. If you look at similar drive-throughs, Chick-fil-A and that type of thing, there's a lot of traffic in that area. This location in Goodyear here, I don't know whether the traffic is going to back up on McDowell Road. So that's my comment there as far as the concern, as far as the traffic patterns. The other concern I had was the pedestrian traffic. This restaurant, I know it's got parking, but when you look at the location of the parking garages, and if someone wanted to park in the parking garage and walk over here, how is this traffic going to affect the pedestrian walkways to this restaurant? That's my comment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody want to address that?
Yeah. So while I can't speak on Chick-fil-A, I can reiterate the queuing that is provided from the applicant. As I said, there's 24 stacking spaces before the first stopping point. That's 4 times what our standard is, as well as 9 from the stopping point to the window, which is more than twice our standards. And then we also, as the resident mentioned, stipulation 10 of the staff report mentions that if any queuing issues were to happen, that we would discuss it with the owner in trying to find a solution to that. In regards to pedestrian traffic accessing from other parts of the site, as you can see here, there are pedestrian crosswalks made of different material than the street to clearly indicate pedestrian crossing, as well as being used as a traffic calming device. This is accessed directly off of North Civic Square, as well as several sites to the north.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's see, before we open that up, let's see, close public hearing with the city clerk. Council enter a motion and a second to approve the use permit for convenience use for a drive-through restaurant on approximately 1.46 acres, identified in the Goodyear Civic Square at Estrella Falls pad and located northwest corner of McDowell Road and 150th Drive, subject to stipulations. Let's see, I see a motion and a second, open for discussion. First up is Councilmember Stipp.
Thank you, Mayor. Got a number of questions kind of related to the issue. I think let's start with the traffic. I think a resident is concerned that we're going to address the traffic issue after it becomes a problem rather than before it becomes a problem. So let's talk a little bit about how we envision the traffic flow through here. I think I know, because I've heard about this development for months and months and months, where the public has not. But I think we need to kind of address that proactive versus reactive scenario. So I see, Christian, you're ready, and that's my first.
As it relates to McDowell itself, the development of this first phase of GSQ is supported by the traffic study. If it's about the queuing in the Shake Shack backing up onto the streets, they have modified their circulation through the site so that it would back up internal to the site. So they're gonna wrap around 150th Drive.
We're not seeing the same thing you are.
Oh, you're not? Okay. I'm sorry. There we go. So
Look, that's awesome. You're pointing at something.
if traffic were to back up, this site is developed differently, so it would stack internally. So the pickup windows here, it would stack, then they do a double drive for the entire length of the block between 150th and McDowell, and then they stack north. So their stacking could occur in the site. So from a traffic management perspective, McDowell is built to handle the regional traffic of the area. But if it's talking about the traffic stacking out onto the streets, it would stack into McDowell based on the way it's its design.
It would not stack onto McDowell.
It
is
would
that-
not stack on
okay.
McDowell.
I just want to make sure,
Yes.
if it's going to overflow anywhere, it appears it's going to overflow onto Civic Square.
Correct, and at that point, we have other conversations we'd have with them. And this case is very different than previous drive-through cases. Some of the recent ones you've seen are very similar to this, where we have actual stipulations in here that would give us some ability to reevaluate the use permit.
Okay. So piggybacking on that, my follow-up question regarding the actual customer themselves, which is Shake Shack. I'm just going to lean over your shoulder. Shake Shack is not, their model isn't drive-through. Yeah. At least the one that we talked about that is similar in Kierland is not really a drive-through there, yeah.
Councilmember Stitt, Mayor, members of the council, my name's Heather Person. My address is 4643 East Cayo Medio in Phoenix. I am a consultant working for the landowner, so I don't actually work at Shake Shack, but you are correct. There is one brand-new Shake Shack drive-through on the 101 in North Scottsdale that just opened, but the existing other Shake Shacks in town are not drive-throughs.
Has there been a change of the business model to push it more I mean, I realize the quick serve restaurant has now become the latest and greatest, but that's not really Shake Shack's business model.
I think they're converting to it because they've seen that demand in the marketplace, like
Okay.
many of the other fast casual restaurants have, and so they've designed for that. And like Christian and Justin stated, we worked really hard with staff to make sure that we have, I mean, compared to other projects I work on, this has quite a lot of stacking,
Yeah,
so I'm
it does.
hopeful it won't become a problem.
Yeah, I think we're overly sensitive to, excuse me, the Dutch Bros overstacking, the Chick-fil-A overstacking, that we end up with spillover, if you will, into nearby areas. So I think when I first saw this particular layout, I was quite shocked at how large that drive-through area was. So, I think those kind of address those couple of issues. My other question is, if I'm parked at the parking garage in that area and I want to walk over there, there is a large dirt lot in between this parcel and that parking garage. So are we putting in sidewalks along 150th? Let's talk about pedestrian access.
So this project will develop the sidewalk on 150th on the frontage, but particular to the garage, there are improvement plans that are in for Globe Drive, and they will be building paths that will allow you to cross and gain access to their site. So there's off-site improvement plans that are coming in that will address that infrastructure along Globe to at least provide that link so that you don't have to go out to Civic, down and back in, but you can come straight down across and in.
Okay, so then that kind of leads into my final question is, oftentimes we have these commercial parcels that are just left over. And it's, okay, we can't get anything else on it, what shows up? And then we end up with somebody coming in with a quote-unquote great idea to fill a corner. This is not one of those scenarios. This is part of a greater master planned development. And I realize it comes with the pain of it being a quote-unquote drive-through, but let's talk just a little bit about that whole, I'm assuming Red Development is behind this. I'm assuming that Globe is behind it, that this isn't a one-off. It's part of the bigger picture. Just kind of talk about that, and then I'm all done.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sorry,
That's okay. So Red is not working on this side of the street, they're working on the east
Okay.
side of 150th. And I've been working with the Globe team on all the other new restaurants that are coming in, where we've got the Stillery and the Yard and a whole host of other things that are coming, the buildings that you can see out there right now. And we've been working with our brokers on marketing for the rest and looking to then bring in probably a few more buildings that are a mix of service, retail, and restaurants. And so that one triangular piece that you're talking about, and I don't know if you guys have a larger site plan on one of these. Okay, that might be good enough, maybe. So, this is a very fast mouse, but so, yeah, the Shake Shack piece is right here where the star is, the parking structure is going in right now, and then, we've still got some other pieces up and down here and here that we're primarily focused on bringing more restaurants and amenities for the people that work here and in the surrounding area.
Okay, so it's part of a bigger plan.
It is part of a bigger plan, yep.
All right. Thank you for taking my questions.
Of course.
You good? Councilmember Gillis?
I noticed that you had, can you bring up whether there was a Desert Flower Drive or whatever it was that you had on there?
This one? Or,
Where it says Desert Flower Drive. Okay, is it Desert Flower Drive, road, or lane? What is, it says drive, but is that what it is? Or you said lane in there too, so which one is it?
that might have been a mistake. I believe that it's Desert Flower Drive.
And we can have two of those in the city of Goodyear, because there is another one, It's the same one?
It's the same alignment, so we follow MAG standards. There's a few atypical.
It's not going to be confusing to people.
It's on the same alignment, so it holds the same street. So across the valley and then across Goodyear, we will always hold the same street.
Because it's a long ways away. It's in the vistas.
Correct, yes. It's at the same alignment just north of McDowell. So if you're looking for Desert Flower, it's helpful as you would know that Desert Flower is just north of McDowell.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to check on that.
Councilmember Hampton?
I say, yeah, thank you to Shake Shack for coming. We're excited to have you guys here. I think the rest of the council members answered a lot of my questions already. How much acreage or how much land is this particular parcel?
Yeah, it
Take.
is 1.46 acres.
Okay, and then I see that there's at least 2 or 3 more pads north of there, right? This is a good picture right here. So there'll be more uses coming, like
Yes, Councilmember.
the representative said as well. So yeah, no, this is will be a very popular usage, which is also the residents' concern. A lot of our popular destinations have a lot of traffic. So I'm glad that we put into place the stipulations and that the user was able to work with us to make them as long as possible on those areas, because we definitely want it to be user-friendly for all the residents and everybody coming and visiting this area, because it will definitely be, whole area should be a big region draw. So we want to make sure that the traffic is going to continue to flow along this area. So yeah, so say welcome to Goodyear. We're excited to have you. And I know a lot of residents are really excited about this particular location. So thank you. That's all I had.
Councilmember Campbell?
Thank you. We do know that this area is going to be the walkable part of our downtown area, and we're excited that it's coming as an anchor on that corner, because those of us that go through drive-throughs a lot, we can pick up what we want to eat and then go to the front of the city hall or even to the library and have our lunch right there. I do understand the concern about the stacking. However, I have to give a shout out to Chick-fil-A on Estrella Parkway. They've got that stacking down pat. And I have yet to see the traffic back up on Estrella, even for breakfast or for lunch or for dinner. And they've just done a marvelous job moving those 2 lines around. So I know we've looked at this and we don't plan on it being backed up. If we back up, we can back up on Civic Drive and we'll be just fine. So thank you very much for coming. We love Shake Shack. It's a great company. Welcome to Goodyear.
Councilmember Loretano?
Thank you very much. You did a great first presentation, first of all, so great job. Can you put up the stacking, the one again? That.
Oh.
I get this kind of like bright thing going here. I'm like, okay. So where the little wall is, there's still additional double stacking above that, correct?
Are you talking about over here?
Yeah, if you go down, yeah, right there. That's still double stacked all the way through here. That's how you get the 24 spaces, right?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, Councilwoman.
I guess what I liked about this plan was I understand the concern about, because we do have some drive-throughs that really do back up. And my biggest concern with some of those is when they back up and they block people in their spaces, like the people that want to go sit down at the restaurant and then they can't get out because not Chick-fil-A, it's Popeyes. That's always a problem. And the Starbucks over there, you have to be careful where you park if you go in, because if no one's nice, they're not going to let you out when you're done. So what I like about this is it goes around, away from almost all of that parking. So everyone, you have your 24 cars there, which is a lot, you're not going to impede the people that are going to sit down or go into the serve restaurant. So I think that's good. And with the 24 plus the 9 additional spaces, that's over 30. So I think that's a good sufficient parking, and I think it'll be a huge success. So welcome to Goodyear, and I wish others, this is a good model to follow, I think, for the stacking for others to make sure we don't have that problem. So thank you very much.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot to add what you have on there. I've heard good things about this particular business on the service, and almost like some of the others that we've got coming in there that's being built right now, that's almost built up. White Castle has a great following as well. So looking forward to the business, and really looking forward to this downtown that we're building down here. That's going to be walkable for a lot. And I know it's been years and years. A lot of people have been asked for quality restaurants, and we've got those coming as well. And then when we start developing over on the other side where the mall used to be, you're going to see a variety of marts there. So it's a really exciting time being Goodyear, and really looking forward to some of the quality amenities that we want to try to bring here. So with that, let's go ahead and open the voting. 7-0. Thank you for the presentation. Next public hearing item is to collect public comments on the draft of the 2024-25 action plan for the HUD CDBG program. Open the public hearing. Go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Christina Panatescu, Community Partnerships Program Manager here at the city. We are nearing the end of the public comment period for our draft annual plan describing the intended investment of the city's FY25 allocation. This public hearing offers yet another opportunity for citizen participation in our planning process. Tonight, I will offer some context for decision-making and explain next steps. Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, entitlement planning starts with a consolidated plan. Ours, adopted in 2021, provides the framework for use of CDBG funding through 2026. The consolidated plan is implemented through annual action plans, which specify the upcoming fiscal year's investment intentions. Projects called activities named in the plan must benefit low to moderate income Goodyear households or neighborhoods, like the ones indicated with the hatched mark in the map pictured here. And for reference, that's an annual income of actually over $74,800 for a family of 4, because that number just got increased effective May 1st by HUD, actually. And according to HUD's data, approximately 20,000 people in Goodyear, or 5,800 Goodyear households, could be eligible for such benefits. Activities could be projects in areas where the census says the LMI population is greater than a certain percentage, or the projects that serve specific populations who are presumed to be low mod income, like those named in the right column on this list here. And they also have to fit one of these eligible priority areas from our consolidated plan. We had our first public meeting on January 16th with 7 residents participating online or in person at GRC. We engaged in faith and community roundtable. Broadband service providers were contacted, and city department directors were also invited to brainstorm activities for funding. Several public service type activities and community facilities and infrastructure projects were mentioned, and we also held a work session with you all on March 18th. The draft plan has now been available on the city's website, goodyearaz.gov/CDBG since March 26th, and remains open for public comment through this evening. In addition to retaining 20% for expenses associated with the administration of this complex program, the balance of the city's allocation, along with all funds remaining from the New Life Center renovations completed earlier this year, will be allocated to the community facilities and infrastructure activities. Specifically, we will intend to use the funds to design, purchase and install as many as 17 streetlights along Litchfield Road in front of historic Goodyear neighborhood. This recommendation is an eligible activity and a tangible investment in enhancing the safety and infrastructure of the community. These streetlights were initially considered in the MC 85 Van Buren Streetlight Sidewalk Improvements project being scoped for the CIP, for a future CIP project. So selecting this project for FY25 CDBG funding will accelerate the portion in front of the residential area and will leverage an estimated $332,000 in federal CDBG funds. Public comment, as I said, continues to be accepted through the end of today. The final plan will be brought to council for authorization on May 6th in order to meet HUD's deadline. And then we'll be doing this planning process all over again, beginning late this year, early next, to identify recommendations for the city's FY26 CDBG investment. And that includes my presentation for this evening.
Thank you. And any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Anybody in the audience like to speak? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Again, the public hearing tonight is just to collect public comments. We do not have any action items, but does the council have any comments? I see first one up, Councilmember Stipp.
Christina, I just wanted to compliment you on the way you've shepherded this project through, not just this one, but since we have gone through the entitlement process. I know there was a lot of trepidation among you, not among you, but you and among the staff in trying to take this on. I think year 3?
Yeah.
Is this year 3 now? And we keep taking care of these particular areas of the community that we need to. And as we grow into this program, I know the program will grow and it will change. But I just wanted to thank you for all of your efforts as you've been going through it, because now that I'm going through the countdown, this will be my last CDBG as I sit up here. So just thank you for keeping that going as an entitlement community and all the work you've done before.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Hampton?
Yeah, I want to also say thank you as well. I remember when I was on CDAC and I pushed to get this continue revenue stream as the size of the city that we are, like all the rest of the cities that are our size or larger already have this program in place. So I do appreciate you looking at different opportunities, especially for historic Goodyear, North subdivisions, all these locations that can use these funds. So the lighting project will be great, keep more safety for pedestrians and people traveling along Litchfield Road. And I like all the other projects that we've done in the past. I know we'll be doing more and more in the future for this area. So I appreciate your creativity and really helping these neighborhoods out, and just keep continuing to invest in them and keeping them safe. And so I appreciate that. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Well, I guess I'm going to jump on the complimentary bandwagon, but I also wanted to note that we've been a CDBG entitlement city since the fiscal year 2022, and this has certainly allowed us to participate fully in the HUD program and to be masters of our own destiny. So thank you for the work that you do and the great projects that you're bringing forward.
Councilmember Campbell?
Thank you. I'm looking forward to updating that part of Litchfield Road because we have a lot of pedestrian traffic and it is very dark. And I'm really very grateful that you have been able to identify this for the historic Goodyear area, and we can proceed and use our HUD funds this way. So thanks very much, Christina.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot to add. Again, I appreciate all the work that you and your staff do to get this thing done. So with that, there be no further discussion. We will move on to the next public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate council support.
Last public hearing is to consider zoning ordinance amendment. Open the public hearing. If you would, please introduce yourself to the public.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. For the record, I'm Dave Williams, and I'm a contract planner here for the city of Goodyear. The proposal before you this evening for your consideration is modification to the zoning ordinance related to assisted living homes. Now, I'm going to start calling them group homes as we go through our presentation because that's the direction where our ordinance is also going. But the project that we brought forward was to help align the City of Goodyear with other cities in the valley for best practices and best management of all assisted living and group homes. So part of this proposal right now, they are called assisted living homes. And for background, if you have 1 to 6 residents, they are allowed by right in any residential zoning district with no buffering requirement. If you have 7 to 10, then there is a quarter-mile buffer requirement that is applied once you hit that 7-person. But then we have other oddities in this, in that fire sprinklers are required if you have 6 or more. So we've got kind of a disconnect in those breakdowns between the zoning ordinance, the building code, the buffering. So this helps kind of marry all those together for a little simplification. Group homes, as they go through the process now, they are required to do a change of use with building safety. And that's to make sure that the group home that's being operated there, that the individuals residing in that home are either ambulatory, that they can self-extricate themselves in the event of an emergency, or that appropriate building safety provisions are in place to help get them out. Moving forward, the proposal would change the vernacular over to a group home, which is consistent now. When we analyzed the definitions, we realized we had a phrase in the zoning ordinance of a single housekeeping unit, but we had no definition for it. So we've gone through and we've created a definition for single housekeeping unit. We are also now putting a quarter-mile buffer on all group homes in the city. And I'll back up here just slightly. I did mean just to show a brief map over here on the right. And that is a heat map. So that shows the density of group homes that we have in the community and where we have the overlap. So where you start seeing the red, we start having a much higher density than in other parts of the community. The buffering will help kind of minimize and spread those out a little bit more. As part of this proposal, of course, we need to update the land use tables, the individual zoning districts, what is and is not allowed. That's part of this. But then it's also going to require and clearly denote the business license requirement. And you'll be considering that here in just a minute as your next agenda item. But we want to be able to be sure that we tie those two together. And then we'll be clarifying licensing requirements, permitting, and process timeframes. If this is approved, if a group home application is to come in, they will be applying with planning first for a zoning clearance. That zoning clearance, and it would be a temporary one, good for 180 days, allows that individual to then go to the state of Arizona and start applying for their state licenses. It's not a permission to operate, but it helps then saying, yes, we're okay with the concept of a group home here. They have to then apply with building safety for a change of use, as I discussed. They will then apply with finance for a business license, make those necessary state licenses, get all of those squared away. And then before operating, they have to have a fire inspection and building inspection to ensure that they are meeting the minimum requirements of the fire code and that change of use building safety permit that they applied for. Finally, once all of that is done, all those boxes have been checked, the final zoning clearance will be issued at that point. All of this process has come together as part of a rapid improvement event that the city did, where we brought all the departments together that had an interest in group homes and were able to really outline the process and come up with this very functional model. With that, we have gone through the public process. It has been advertised. It was heard at the Planning Commission a couple weeks ago. It did receive a unanimous vote for recommendation from the Planning Commission. The only question that they had is, are we changing any building codes? And the answer is no. The building codes themselves are just fine for these uses. We're not looking at any changes there. So we're just looking to move forward. Now, if implemented, we are recommending a July 1st implementation date. Normally, it would be 30 days after approval. We're asking for a little bit more time because we'd like the opportunity to work with all the group homes, make sure everybody is on the same page, and really be able to push some information out to the community to help them go through that permitting process. So With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Anybody in the audience like to speak on this one? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing.
We had someone that wanted to speak.
Oh, you have
right here.
somebody? Where? Oh, come on in.
Hi, I'm John Rooney. Thank you for listening. I only really have one comment or question, possibly for the presenter. But with the buffer zone, I guess I'm just wondering, spreading them out, how's that helping the community surrounding the group homes? Because I can understand the importance of group homes and how helpful they can be to the people who need them. So I'm just wondering how spreading them out affects the people around those homes and the people who will end up between those homes.
You want to address that?
Thank you. I'd be happy to address that. Spreading them out provides for a traditional family residential setting for that neighborhood compared to having a significant aggregation of group homes. What we see in many cases is we'll have one block that has 4, 5, 6 group homes. And that creates a very different dynamic for that neighborhood than having one within that community. It helps spread them out a little bit and create more of that neighborhood family type of environment, which is what fair housing and ADA are really envisioning as part of the overall process.
Thank you. With that, anybody else? Okay, with the city clerk, I'm going to close public hearing. City clerk, please read the ordinance number 2024-1604 by title only.
Adopt ordinance number 2024-1604, amending Goodyear zoning ordinance Article 2, Section 2-2 definitions, amending Sections 3-2-2 permitted uses and 3-2-4 single-family additional use definitions and regulations of Article 3, related to definitions, minimum separation of group homes, and zoning clearance approvals, providing for corrections, severability, and an effective date, and directing the city clerk to record a copy of this ordinance.
Thank you. With it, soon we get a motion and a second for 2024-1604. See a motion and a second. Before I call on the first one up there, just a quick question for you while I have it up there. What if you have a group home that does not follow any of the things that you put on there?
This ordinance very clearly outlines the path to their success. If they don't follow that path to their own success, we have a very effective enforcement mechanism through code enforcement to be able to take action against them. So if they fail to obtain a business license, there would be an enforcement mechanism. That license could be at jeopardy after hearing if they fail to perform. We're really outlining this for their success at the end of the day. We want them to be able to follow that path, do the right thing, and ensure for everybody's safety that they are properly permitted and allowed to be in the community they're in.
Appreciate that. With that, go ahead and Councilmember Campbell.
I have a couple of questions. As you know, I sit on the Nursing Care Institution Administrators and Assisted Living Managers State Board.
Yes, ma'am.
We're always going to be called an assisted living facility.
Yes.
We are not a group home. Because when folks need that type of assistance, they don't look for a group home. They've got to have a home that has a licensed facility manager on site. They take care of the meds, they take care of the bathing, whatever they need. It's a higher area of care. So we have to be very protective of that group because they are governed by the state. They are licensed by the state. They have yearly inspections by the state. And if they are found in not following the law, they're written up, they're fined, and then they come before our board and we have the authority to revoke their license immediately or send them back to school.
Yes.
To take the course again or whatever. Now, is this Goodyear's solution to the sober homes problem? Or are we really trying to figure out where we're placing these group homes? Because Homeless Youth Connection has a group home in Goodyear. There are some sober homes in Goodyear that do a wonderful job, and they're there because they're there to help someone that needs help. So are we grandfathering in some of these homes that are already here? I mean, how are you going to get them to be compliant if they're not compliant?
So you had many parts to that, so let me go ahead and address a few of those. The definition group home that we're using is a modernization of the language because the industry itself has evolved. We are absolutely recognizing the need for assisted living homes within this definition. We absolutely are taking care of that. But what we have seen is, and it is through the sober living, is all of a sudden these houses become sober living. Well, then things change. Then they become a mental behavioral health home. And then they become perhaps a prison transitional home. The definition has been very fluid, unfortunately, in the industry. So we've gone through and tried to marry ourselves to best industry practices that gets everybody under that same umbrella. So by no means are we trying to leave out assisted living. We've actually got it, I think, very well encapsulated, but we had to pick up the outliers as part of that. So as far as the legal nonconformance, the homes that exist today, that is part of what we need this 60 days for, is to go through and be able to work with all of them. We've got a list of about 150 or so group homes in the city of Goodyear right now. We're going to be reaching out and working with all of them to try to get them in compliance with licensing, because through our rapid improvement program, we identified many were not. They took care of some of their stuff with Goodyear, but not everything. They took care of some of the state, and it was a hodgepodge, unfortunately, of compliance. So that's part of what we're looking to do, is to make sure we can get everybody who is licensed, legitimate, they're operating under that same umbrella and captured now as legal homes. If they are operating in a legal manner today, they will be allowed to operate in a legal manner tomorrow. That's not a problem. If they are operating in an illegal manner today, that is a problem. And that's part of what we are trying to solve. We do see, as part of this, there will be more opportunities for housing to come available to families. So we're looking at this as kind of we're able to identify, take care of licensing, maybe open up some housing for people, and find a better holistic solution to the problem.
I know Tempe and several the other cities are working on their sober living.
Yes.
Ordinances, or whatever they're going to call them. Are we the first ones out the gate to do this?
No, we're not. We're about middle of the pack right now. Surprise really jumped out in front of everybody.
Okay.
And I think they did a very good job getting their implementation in and getting control of everything and working on that licensing aspect. Queen Creek has had some very good experiences. Gilbert, Chandler, the Southeast Valley, the West Valley is working on this as well. And we have communicated with our partners in the valley to try to find where that middle ground is, that healthy spot.
Well, it's really important that we know what kind of homes we have in our city.
Yes.
Because not only we're protecting the residents of that home, we're protecting the residents that live around there.
Yes.
And I appreciate you bringing this forward because, in our assisted living facilities, we have many that are bedbound.
Yes.
And they are required by law to have disaster drills.
Yes.
And they are required by law to get them out because the assisted living person is unable to do that.
Yeah.
So.
And that's where the critical change of use permit with building safety comes in. And are they ambulatory or not? We genuinely, our biggest concern is their health and safety.
Absolutely. And are we going to be having fire inspections at these? Is this written in the ordinance? I didn't see it, but maybe I missed it.
Yes. Fire inspections are required as part of the permitting process.
Are they yearly or just once?
They are yearly.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you. Very good. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gillis.
I'm excited about this only because we know that there's been a lot of illegal homes in this city. And so we're finally cracking down on them. And I think that this is going to help that. And the fact that we're bringing licenses in, since we've only had registrations, so licenses are going to make a big difference on that too.
Yes.
I can see why people in these different areas don't want the influx of all these homes in one area. And you said, how far apart are they going to be again?
They will be a quarter-mile apart. And this won't happen overnight. This will be a slow process of attrition.
Right.
As the ebb and flow of the businesses, it will be a slow process. But You know, when everything's said and done, we fast forward several years, we should have a very different looking map than we do
It's
today.
going to take that long, several years?
Just to get the density down in some of these areas. As they go out of business, as they move, as things change, it may take a little time. This is not an overnight solution, but it is a step in the right direction.
My main thing is that we take care of what's going on with these illegal homes because of the fact that they're getting a lot of insurance money out of a lot of our citizens in this city that are being taken advantage of.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
that's why we came to this conclusion, so I'm really happy about that.
This will help provide tools.
Okay, and so sober living homes will be under the group home category, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so any of the drug homes, sober living, any of those will all be considered
Yes.
group homes?
Correct.
Okay. I think that was it. That was it. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you.
To get in a legal standpoint. With the state, the moratorium on licenses and getting legal homes coming in, is that still there with the governor where she's not allowing licenses, or is that letting up now?
I don't know a current status on that. As of a few weeks ago, yes, they were in kind of limbo.
Yeah.
I don't know a more current status than a
Can
couple
you
of
find
weeks
that
ago.
out and get that information to
I
me?
will be happy to.
Because I have a bigger one that wants to come into the city, and I think they would like to know if they've lightened up
I
on
will be
that.
happy to.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stipp.
Great presentation as always.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to touch base on, we had this discussion about the region and us not being the first ones out. I'm sensitive to us getting out of the gate too quickly and then having to retract and go back. But I didn't, in all of the communities that I heard you talking about who has, I didn't hear very many West Side communities other than Surprise. So when I want to talk regional, what I'm worried about is we're either going to push them out to others or they're going to push them into us. So how do we, if we're all doing something slightly different, so how is this effort being coordinated among our West Side part? If they get pushed to Chandler, I mean, that's,
Chandler.
bad players, I don't want to say I'm sorry for the East Valley, but
Sure.
the likelihood of a 50 or 60 mile trip is far less than it is a 5 or 6 mile trip. So talk to me about the.
I do know they are watching what we're doing this evening. We have been in communication with them. They are running a little behind us, mainly due to workloads and other issues. It seems to be more pressing at the moment for us. At the moment, Surprise, they kind of put the hammer down about a year ago. That pushed everybody down into Goodyear. I will say, as an interesting anecdote, about 6 months ago when I was looking for a home, I could not find a 4-bedroom home in the city of Goodyear. I had to move into Surprise because that was the only location I could find a 4-bedroom home. So their efforts up there seem to have opened up some housing stock as well, which I hope we would see, that benefit happen over time as well. But that was an interesting side effect of this that I hadn't really put together at the time until we started looking at this. But the other cities are watching what we're doing. Some are more motivated than others to move forward on this. And some of them are waiting to see kind of what the state's going to do. But,
Yeah. Like I wouldn't hold my breath for that. Sorry. I'm going to get much looser these next 6 or 7 months. But anyway, so Surprise is the only one. How does this compare to what Surprise has done? Are they
very consistent to what Surprise has done. They put buffers on everything, quarter mile as well. Licensing requirements were very similar to what they've done. They assigned a code enforcement officer as well, who's a former, I believe, retired police officer, and his sole job is these homes.
Okay, awesome. The last question that I had, it was in your presentation. It was, can we go back to the presentation?
Be happy to. Which slide do you need?
Do you control that?
I can, yes.
Okay. Right there, actually.
Perfect.
Fire sprinklers required for homes with 6 or more residents. Is that a current requirement today?
That is in the building code for assisted living homes. So if there is a group occupancy in a home, the building code triggers that automatically at 6 people. If it's your family or mine, it does not trigger. It comes back to the ability for people to self-extricate
Yeah.
and looking at it doesn't behave like a single-family home in this respect.
So by us putting the group homes within that same residential category, I may not use the right terminology there, what I'm concerned is that perhaps we are now going to encourage 5 or less group homes. So they'll be in the shorter, no distance requirement, no sprinkler requirement. Now every single home that can accommodate 5 or less.
Yes.
So
And that's what's happening today.
Okay.
Our proposal takes that off the table and puts a buffer on all of them. And that is exactly what's happening.
On 6 or less?
6 or less. What we see is people will call into planning, they'll speak to the planner and say, hey, I want to do a group home, and they walk them through the requirements, and they say, I want to do 8. They walk them through the requirements and say, wow, 5 sounds great, as soon as they hear the fire sprinkler. So they roll it back. This is what's already happening. By changing the ordinance and putting that buffer requirement on all of them, now we have the buffer. The building code still exists regardless. We're not changing that at all. But we kind of get a little more of a separation, I believe.
So, but what you're saying though is if it's 1 to 6 residents, there is no, this is the current situation. So the future.
1 to 5 does not require any fire sprinklers per the building code. 1 to 6 does not have any buffering requirements today.
But if we pass this, it will.
Yes, July 1st, it absolutely will.
For some reason, I missed that part. Thank you very much.
Not a problem. I'm glad I could clarify.
Good. Councilmember Loretano?
Thank you very much. That was a very good presentation and very informative. I think one thing for our citizens need to know that these are protected under federal law, correct?
Correct.
So we can't just say, no, we don't want them, period, right?
Yes.
But we can, and what this does is this separates the bad actors, the ones that don't want to comply and don't want to get into compliance. We're going to give them an opportunity to get into compliance with reasonable restrictions to operate their business. Is that a fair statement?
That's very fair. We want the legitimate businesses in our community to be successful. So we want to set them up for success.
And they're like Councilmember Campbell was talking about, there's different things that fall under this umbrella, and there's going to be different challenges for different of those types under this umbrella that, you know, maybe at some point you have to come back and amend this, I don't know. But I think it's a great start. Could you show me the heat map again?
I'd be happy to.
What do we do in situations, because I see some pretty dark red, you know, and so it looks like there's some real consolidation in some areas of the city. What do we do for those that are clearly, like you said, 4 on a street, they're not, I mean, what happens? How do we fix that? Who gets to stay, who doesn't?
And that's just it. So we're not forcing anybody out of business. If they are operating in a legal, lawful manner, they can continue operating in that legal, lawful manner. These are known. So these are not necessarily permitted. These are the ones that we know in the community that exist out there. And that's why we have those densities. When you look at this map, a lot of those areas that are white, where there's nothing there, that's because they're zoned other than residential, or they're open desert. You know, as we start looking further south, you can start seeing those, you know, wide open areas. As we look at this, we can really see these are our big residential communities in the city. As I said, over time, as these go out of business naturally or move naturally, they change a location, the landlord says, we're not going to, you know, continue this, we're going to sell this house. I do expect to see those numbers shift, and I expect the heat map, using that term, to get a little cooler, so to speak, and kind of a better spreading of the homes. But this is not an overnight solution, as I said. It just sets us up to be able to move forward for success.
So if someone is lawfully operating and someone else is lawfully operating at this point, just 2 doors down,
They will be allowed
they are
to.
allowed to stay
Correct.
until such a point that one of them were to leave, then that doesn't grandfather that property in to be allowed to be that type of business.
Correct. If they sell the house, if they, you know, do something along those lines, then that kind of breaks that chain.
Now, my other question was, you stated that there was some, I want to say kind of carrot and a stick penalties if they choose not to operate lawfully, that we can take their license, et cetera, et cetera. What happens to the instance where we have, and this was mostly in the sober living home area, where we have, say, a lot of police activity is going on there? Is there anything in the statute that allows us to look at their license for that type of activity or anything?
No, there isn't, but what we have found when we looked at the raw data, the ones that were generating our police involvement were not ones that were licensed properly. When we looked at it and say, did they check all of the boxes that they were supposed to, there were always gaps that we identified. So those are the ones that are not following the rules that exist today.
And if they're not following the rules, then they're not protected under federal law.
Correct.
Thank you very much. I think you did a great job trying to coalesce what's going on, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hampton?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I had a few clarifying questions. Everybody's had a lot of very good questions here as well. But yeah, I just wanted to, I know these are all small businesses too, so I just want to make sure that we're not doing too many regulations to hinder small businesses that are also in Goodyear as well. So, but yeah, so I just want to verify, so the ones that are there now will be grandfathered in. They have to move on their own. If I have 8 today, I don't need to reduce that. I can still have 8 today.
Correct.
6. And if they change from one use to the other, we're assuming they've already been licensed, that they need to go get a different license for a different type of group home?
We would need to look at each of those cases individually and make a legal determination based on that. If they were, sober living, going to a fully licensed assisted living, are they following the process? Would it be legal, non-conforming? There's a lot of fine details we actually have to look at for legal review. Ownership, LLC changes, licensing changes. Is this the same, today, as it was yesterday? So we would be looking at all of those individually and making a determination. But all facts equal, the decision usually goes to the citizen in this particular case.
And are we planning on, or do we already did we hire a code enforcement person just for this, like surprises?
No, I'm not aware,
that we have?
There's an additional one in the budget for next year because of this.
So they're dedicated to that, not, I guess I
They will,
assume they'd be looking at all code in the whole city, not just this particular.
but they will help with this ordinance, yes.
And is there like a periodicity of how often they check these type of establishments when they get a permit and they're identified? Or is it just if they're bad actors, then code enforcement goes out?
These are yearly inspections, unless something comes up on the radar.
Right.
If all of a sudden the PD calls and says, hey, we had 5 calls here last week, it would probably get on the radar pretty quick.
Okay.
But in general, just a normal home that's operating, that's doing the right thing, they're going to be checked yearly.
Okay, is that normal for most other
Yes.
cities other than Surprise?
Yes.
For that kind of?
Yeah, to have the fire department come in every year and do a safety inspection is pretty typical.
Okay, and then the only way we're gonna know about them is if they self-identify, correct? Or they create so much
We
police
have a very
activity.
healthy list of ones that we know are out there.
Yeah, and that's
Let me
just
put it
from really police activity, really.
Police and fire contacts, code
So-
enforcement contacts, neighbor complaints.
Yeah, so the reason hopefully they'll want to self-identify and they want to follow the process. But if there's someone that doesn't create any police activity, and we would know about them, then they could be very quietly operating without anybody ever.
Potentially they could be, and that would likely be a code enforcement issue when they would finally be identified.
Yeah, but then they have time, they're not immediately told is there a grace period right now? Or is it,
Right.
if I'm operating, I forgot about the meeting, I didn't come to the meeting, I didn't notify, I was not aware, how much time do they have to
So
come
right
into
now, we've built in
compliance?
60 days into the ordinance so that it won't go into effect for 60 days, and we'll be doing outreach. And just like any permit, as long as they're working in good faith, we will continue to work with them, as long as they're working in good faith.
Yeah, so if I come in the city and I just set one up and wasn't here when this was established.
Yeah.
And then eventually I get found that I need to do it,
And,
then I have
and,
60 some
and
time.
if we look
to
at
work
that
with the
type
city.
of a situation where they were here before regulations, that would be a legal non-conforming use. They would be legal if they came in after. And I believe there are a few of those on the list that have been group homes for a number of years.
Yeah, but if I come in after this and then I
Yeah.
didn't realize that I needed a permit, and I set myself up and started housing people here, then you find out about me, then I'd have some time to come into compliance.
Correct.
Okay. I'm trying to think of the other question I had. I think that was it for now. So, yeah, no, I appreciate the work, and I know we're trying to follow along with the rest of our peers in the cities and help out the community as well. So, yeah, I appreciate all the hard work. So, thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you.
David, you've done a great presentation on a very difficult topic and appreciate the work that you've done. Now, we have referenced that there are federal laws. Would you elaborate on the federal laws and how essentially we're prohibited from discriminating against these types of homes?
Fair housing comes in right at the top of the list. Fair housing identifies what a family is. Our own ordinances identify what a family is, and we have to treat them accordingly to those families. But we also have the American with Disabilities Act, which provide for treatment, provide for if someone is in assisted living, they are receiving medical care, they are protected under those classes. So we have those. We have state laws that are very similar in nature that also help protect these individuals. So there's multiple layers, and the ordinance itself, at face value, is very simple. The analysis behind this, because of those federal laws, the state laws, everything, took a tremendous amount of time. And I do want to throw a quick thank you to the city attorney's office for all of the work that they helped us with on this, because this was a very heavy lift. Doesn't look like it when you look at the ordinance, but this is a very deep subject with a tremendous amount of case law, and they were fantastic at helping us.
Great, thank you for elaborating. I think it helps residents understand what the thought process that definitely goes into it. So all of the changes that are being proposed, those are all now consistent with federal and state law?
Yes.
Okay. So I have a question. It's not a fair question for you, David, so I'm going to ask the city manager or city attorney. If all these changes are legal, then why did it take a sober living crisis to bring it to the forefront?
Thank you.
Because prior to the crisis, we've had multiple calls for services, many homes known to police and fire. So this speaks to being proactive versus reactive. So
I don't have an answer for you at this time. It is something that has been building, and it has come to our attention within the last year and a half for the sober living portion of it.
because I know that we have had many conversations before with this council about the no buffer for 1 to 6 and a buffer from 7 to 10. Now all of a sudden you can now have a buffer for 1 to 6. And I guess what's taken us so long to get this implemented?
Mr. Mayor and Council, Vice Mayor Kano, I think we're proposing a policy that's matching up with industry standards right now. We think it's defensible. The landscape and the regulation of this field is in flux, and there's just a lot of changes over the last few years. Sober living homes have driven a lot of that. I think it's probably the best answer we can give right now. It's just trying to catch up to the rapidly changing landscape.
All right, thank you. How will we get the word out, and especially the homes that are not registered or licensed, how are we going to find them and bring them into compliance?
As I said, we have a wonderful list put together by our partners here in the different departments in the city, and we will be starting on that list.
Okay.
I believe there's some additional media material going out. I expect the phone to start ringing even more tomorrow morning after this. But even leading up to this, planning has had a tremendous increase in calls coming in, asking questions about this. So while we haven't had any public comment, the knowledge that this is coming is likely out there. They have been talking, they've been calling in. asking questions about what to do. So.
Okay. And my last question, you said that it'll be necessary to look at each of these cases individually, as we're implementing the new ordinance. I know we're in the budget, we have a new billing specialist to help with the transition from registration to, or registration to a license. And then we heard tonight that the new code will have some responsibility for these types of homes. But who's actually going to be looking at these cases individually?
Individually, this is likely going to start in planning from a management point of view. Complaint-driven, obviously, would shift out to code enforcement. But building and planning work very closely together. The staff in both of the areas work very closely. So we're talking just about daily on individual projects as they come in related to group homes. So it's development services is going to take a large portion of this, truly. But both areas will be working heavily towards this. So.
Great. Well, thank you for the presentation. We look forward to
Thank you.
Implementing this.
Councilmember Gillis?
The one thing I just wanted to make a comment, Glendale has been huge at this too, as well as Surprise. Glendale and Surprise took the lead on this.
Yes.
And so they are one of our West Valley cities.
Yes,
They have
and
been
I
really working.
apologize if I did not
Thank you.
mention them.
Yes,
I've had a
because
lot of
Glendale was
conversations
huge.
with them.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
And the other thing is, as far as the illegal, how are we going to, when you start implementing these licenses, how are we going to know about the illegal homes? Are we going to find out by just them not coming, because we know who they are, some of them, by not coming in and changing over to a license? Is that, and then we're going to follow up on that, I would assume, or how are we going to do that to get them out?
We'll be reaching out to all of them.
Okay.
You know, our internal plan was to start sending some letters, start communicating with all of them as best we can.
How long are we giving them to get out? if they're
Basically,
illegal?
we're looking at the 60 days. We would like to, as I said, set them up for success if they're going to be successful.
Illegal ones?
The ones that are out there right now, we want to be able to put them into a permitting process and either get them in compliance or figure out an enforcement process.
Because this is one thing that I want to be clear about. This is about protecting our citizens. And we have dropped the ball on that with these illegal homes. I want to give a shout out to Scott Daniels, who is PD. And he's been working on this for 5 years. So the truth is, we've known about this for a long time. We've just started bringing this forward. And so the thing is we want to make sure, he's had some really good talks with me and a lot of people up here on what's going on with this. And I think it's important in protecting the citizens that we really stay on top of that, especially with these illegal ones, because we know, get them out.
And we have worked very closely with him and Ashley Troyer over at Fire.
Ashley is great too, both of them.
We've worked very closely
Fire
with
and
both of them as part of this process.
Right, they have been absolutely wonderful.
Yes.
And been on top of this, which is actually how we found out about it. So they brought it to us.
Great.
All right, I think that answers everything. Thank you very much.
The only thing very great discussion. Only thing I'd like to add is, In Focus, our magazine, is something that apparently a lot of people throughout our community read. And, I look at Tammy out there. It may be some article or whatever to get the message out about the licensing for these homes that's out there, because it's my understanding that most people get their information from the city from that, as opposed to social media or the newspapers, et cetera. So it's just another avenue to help get your message out there. With that being said, no further discussion. Can we open up the voting? Passes 7-0. Again, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to remind council, wait for a motion and a second for discussion. We have one business item to consider amending our business registration permits. Please introduce yourself, Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Roy Masson, the City Attorney. The item we have before you this evening, and I think we've already kind of touched on it a little bit in the prior presentation, is an amendment of Articles 8-7 of the City Code, which converts our existing business registration program to a business license program. The business permit, or the business registration program, was enacted back in 2006, and if you look at the legislative history, fortunately, I was there. I remember the conversation. Council at that time had a conversation about whether they wanted to embark on a business registration type program or a business license type program. Basically, the difference between the two: registration, you let the city know that you're conducting business within the city, but there's no actual permitting or enabling or regulation of the business by the city. Council at that time thought that that was a good tool specifically or particularly for economic development to recognize what businesses were operating in the city, but didn't want to move forward with any regulation of those businesses at that time. City's matured and grown, and the recognition has risen that we need to take that next step into a business license type program. They're not unusual. Looking around the valley, most cities has business license programs. Most of our neighbors have business license program. Avondale, Buckeye, Surprise, Glendale, to name a few, all have active business license types programs. The way the license proposal is structured is talking, like David said previously, it's set up for 60 days to allow us to educate the public, have a public outreach program, let those businesses know that moving forward, you won't just register with the city, but you'll actually have a license with the city. Working with finance, our intent is to convert any existing business registration in the city over to a license without any further action required by the business. And that'll occur by July 1st of this year. When you come up for renewal at the beginning of next year, which is when most licenses come up for renewal, it's an annual renewal program, you'll have to apply for a license with the city. So generally the requirements as far as just, as opposed to just registering with the city, there are requirements in getting a license with the city moving forward, and the license ordinance lays those out. Basically, businesses will be required to pay a fee. The fee is going to be the same, $75 as the current registration program. But businesses will be required to allow city inspectors in to inspect the businesses to make sure they're in compliance with life safety codes and other city codes. They'll have to verify that they are licensed to conduct the businesses that they're engaged in. So if you're a hair parlor or a beauty parlor, you have a beautician's license. If you're an attorney, you have a law license. If you're an assisted living facility, like we discussed earlier, you have the requisite license needed to operate that specific type of facility. And you'll be required to have a employee or responsible person on premises during your hours of operation. The code will establish the criteria for application evaluation or revocation. If you provide false information to the city and when you apply for your license, that will be cause for revocation or suspension of your license. If you're operating without a license, that can cause for suspension or revocation or enforcement action against the business. If you've been convicted for theft, fraud, or crimes of moral turpitude, that can affect your ability to get a license on the front end or continue in business if you already have your license. So convictions on those criminal offenses could affect your ability to be licensed in the city. Oh, I think I just skipped. There are certain categories of businesses, I say businesses that are exempt, churches, other types of businesses, some of which are preempted by state statute. So there is a list of exempt businesses contained within the draft ordinance. There are a fine schedule included in the ordinance. If you fail to apply to get a license the first time, it's $250. If you fail to comply with the city code official, i.e. they want to inspect your business and you won't let them in, you're potentially subject to a civil penalty of up to $500. And if you're operating without the license or you're in violation of the license, there's a $300 civil penalty for your first offense, which will increase up to $1,000 for your second or subsequent offense. And each day is a separate offense. So if you have a bad actor who doesn't have a license, is contacted by the city, still refuses to get the license, there could be multiple citations by code enforcement or the police department. And again, there's a 60-day deferred effective date and allow time for the city to do some outreach and public education, make sure that all businesses operating in the city are aware of the new program. And with that, I'll answer any questions the council may have.
First of all, any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Anybody in the audience like to speak? Yes.
I kind of knew I was going to have a comment on this as soon as it started. My family does flooring in the city of Phoenix, and and I'm so sorry for my articulation. When it comes to actually applying for the license and getting it, and having the city inspectors come in to discuss coding, I know that especially in situations where that wasn't being enforced previously, like this with the registrations going on to the licenses, it could be pretty difficult for small businesses and small business owners to quickly come into compliance with those codes and start their business at the same time. I know that for my family, getting the building we purchased up to code cost much, much more money than we had ever really imagined, and it was difficult working with the city on that. I'm worried that new businesses coming here will encounter sort of the same problem, and I was wondering if there was any sort of time frame that these people had to come in with code, if there's any way Goodyear was planning to work with people like this, and how would it become easier for new businesses now to come in and deal with coming into code. So.
Okay. Who wants to, you want to try to address that, Mark? Or should planning?
I'm the best person to answer that, but I think, again, reflecting back on the previous presentation, generally we try to establish a pathway to success. Even
Wait a
today,
minute, I think you've got somebody here. Hold on. Katie, go ahead.
Thank you. The change to the business license is not changing our building codes. So businesses that are currently operating, we are not going to ask them to go back and make physical changes to their building because of this business licensing. So say a business opened 20 years ago, we're not going to suddenly come back and say, you have to adhere to the, current building codes. The building code regulations are what they are, and those aren't changing. We are going to go to a business that doesn't have a registration today and say you need to get your licensing, which Rourke went over the fees, but we're not going to go to them and say they have to make changes to the building. I hope that provides clarification.
Okay, thank you. With that, let's see, hold on. We have, let's see, anybody else speak in the audience? Who?
Actually, I just wanted to clarify, I was speaking more on new businesses that move into existing buildings and find buildings that haven't been updated for some time. And if...
All right, hold on. Katie, how does that affect something along that? They still would have to go through the process to make sure they meet code. Is that correct, or?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'd be happy to talk to you too in more detail if you have more questions and get you my contact information. But again, requiring, you do have to make, when a new business goes into an existing building, you do have to make changes to meet the building code. But this license doesn't change that process. That the building codes and requirements are what they are, and this business license isn't altering those rules or regulations at all.
Okay, thank you. With that, the city clerk, please read the ordinance 2024-1608 by title only.
Adopt ordinance number 2024-1608, amending Article 8-7 Business Registration Permits, providing for corrections, providing for severability, providing for penalties, and an effective date.
Thank you. See, can I get a motion and a second? 2024-1608. I see a motion and a second on the board. Open for discussion. It looks like Councilmember Hampton's first up.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Rourke. Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're sensitive to making sure that we don't have any barriers to entry for businesses in the city of Goodyear, which looks like it's not really changing. It's just a different way to account for the same businesses that we already know about. So, but I just want to make sure with this one and the last one and anything that happens in the city that we have a good change management program in place. So I want to make sure that all businesses are aware, and I don't know what our process is now, but I just want to make sure that no one's left out or they have adequate time to be aware of the changes. And that's for any process in the city, but I just want to make sure our change management program is good. And then it's been adequate in, if it's been adequate in the past, or if we need to update that to make sure that we're just including as many businesses as possible, all of them, really, so.
That's the intent, to give ourselves that 60 days to make sure everyone's aware of it. Again, if you're a current business with a valid business registration, you're probably not going to see a whole lot of change initially because you're just going to get rolled over and assigned a license.
Is it just an email or a letter or both? Or how many oftentimes do we contact them to let them know about the change? Or
Gwinnett may have some
I
information.
mean, maybe I should know after 7 years, but I just don't remember what the change management is for notifying businesses here.
Yes, we're going to contact the businesses, send out a letter and email if we have their email address, but we'll use all avenues to contact them and let them know.
Yeah, I'm just curious if it's one time they notice, or we contact them a few times, or I don't know what the standard is for our changes. That's all. So
Good questions, and we can follow up with some of those answers.
okay, thank you.
Councilmember Gillis?
So, Rourke, this was mainly done in answer to the gentleman's question also. This was mainly done, correct, because of the sober living homes, which we were calling sober living homes, which was why we started all this thing with licensing, correct?
Well,
The illegal ones we were having problems with?
It arose, we identified that we did not have a business license
Right.
program while we were addressing that issue.
Right.
And looking around at our neighboring communities and some of the tools that they had in their toolbox.
Right.
One of which was a business license program.
Right.
And then, trying to reconcile, well, we don't actively have that tool. So will that assist us in that regulation? Yes.
Right. So that's kind of more what we're concerned about right now. Also, the fees, are they high enough? I mean, because some people can pay that money with no problem, and it's not per day, correct? Except for the one at the end.
You could.
I can't see the fees. Can somebody put that up again, please?
The fees are structured,
That, the 1,000 is.
it's 1,000, could be 1,000 per day. So if you have a bad actor who refuses to come into compliance, it could be $1,000 a day.
Right, but the fees before that, they don't seem high enough to me to make somebody really want to take care of a situation, especially if you're illegal and you've got a lot of money because you're taking the people for a ride. So you've got their money you're using. So what, are those high enough fees? That's since we're putting this into effect.
Well, and there was some conversation about that, and the balancing you're trying to do is, yes, there certainly are bad actors, but there's also people that just are not aware of the program and may not.
But we're making them aware, correct?
We are making them aware. So your first fine is $300, but if the next day you still refuse, then you get cited again and you move up to the $1,000. There are provisions in the code that if you knowingly and willfully fail to violate the code, you can move to criminal violations.
Okay.
So you
I
have
just
that
don't
in
want
the
to be
back.
back here again, going through this again when we've asked this and we didn't put the fees high enough.
Again, we're trying, the goal is to try to get everybody in compliance through a civil fee program. There are provisions that, for those bad actors, that you can move to a criminal misdemeanor offense.
And if we see it going a different way, then we can put this back.
Always come back and reevaluate.
Great. I appreciate it, Roy, with the work you've done on this, because it's important to me.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stipp?
Sherry and I were discussing, I didn't realize I needed a law license to practice law. And I was tested by reading the ordinance itself, so.
Yeah, you have to have it.
Yeah, so what I want to, I think just very simply, having looked at it, if my next door neighbor sells Tupperware or Avon from not like people coming into their home, are they considered a business and have to do even though they're a corporation and they pay themselves, et cetera?
There would be a home-based business, and they would be required to get the license, but the inspection requirements are not applied to the home-based businesses.
Okay.
So if you're selling whatever you're selling, but if you are conducting business in the city, you would need a license, but we're not going to come out and inspect you.
So I saw there was something in here for consulting, law, accounting. So my old accountant used to do his accounting work from his fourth bedroom.
Right.
Is that a Is that a
No
business?
no mandatory inspection, but you are inviting the public in. If you're inviting the public in, it's an optional inspection, but
Right.
that would not be the focus area.
Does he need to get a business license?
Yes.
Okay, I think we're going to kill, we're going to kill a lot of people who have home-based businesses by requiring a licensure. And I know I know the problem we're trying to solve, but I think we're going to create another one. I said this tonight that we talked about it in the work session. I wish there was a way to continue to support, especially in today's economy where a lot of people are relying on that kind of income and those little mini businesses to keep their families afloat. And those that are working from home as freelancers, we're going to require all of them to go out and get business licenses as a freelancer. And I think that is the worst case of government interference possible. We're going to penalize those people because we've got bad actors somewhere else that we're trying to take care of. And that is my greatest concern with this process. And I realized when we put it in place, we're like, hey, it's going to be optional. We're going to encourage people to open their own home businesses, et cetera, and that was great. But now that we're switching to this, I just worry about the implication, and I think of people like my son, for example, who does a lot of freelance, who has his own LLC. He would have to, if he lived here in the state, but if he lived here in the city, he would have to get a business license. And I kind of, that just doesn't feel right, so.
Is it true they would still have to register the way the registration is right now, Roy?
My interpretation is yes.
Yes, so they would
If
still have to
you're
register.
conducting business within the city, at any level, you would need to register.
But our
And-
registration would require that anyway right now, correct?
Correct, and the fee's the same, and the fee is kind of middle of the pack as far as the neighboring communities, what we require as far as a registration and/or license fee.
Yeah, but my question is, if they were doing it now, they would still be required to register.
If you're conducting
Period.
business
The way
in the
our
city,
code
you
is
should,
now, right?
you should have filed for a business registration.
Go ahead.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think Bill, Councilmember Stipp stole a lot of my questions here with regard to that. I support this because I know what we're trying to do with this. Can we do some sort of carve out for those home-based business? Because the guy that's the dog walker off of, whatever, rover.com, but he has an LLC or he has a PLC or something in order for the income, for the tax purposes, or the Rodan and Fields makeup, Mary Kay sellers. I'm kind of thinking we might have got too much of a broad brush, maybe. I don't know what you think about that.
I think we're trying to balance an ordinance that is viewed in a non-discriminatory manner towards certain bad actors we might want to address. So our recommendation is a broad brush across the board ordinance and try to make it as least onerous as we can on those home-based businesses. So there are some carve-outs in the ordinance for those types of businesses.
Yeah, I like the fact that they won't go through the same inspection.
Yeah.
How about, this is kind of like your law school exam here I've got for you. How about an example where, say, I'm a realtor, but I'm not based, in Goodyear. I'm based in Peoria, but I sell homes in Goodyear, so I'm conducting business. Does every realtor need to do this, or how does that work?
Our position would be that if you're conducting business within the city, you would need to register for a license.
Yeah, because I know, like, for me personally, our business is in Glendale, but we have had to get a license for Surprise, which I think was like $200 or $300. That was the most expensive one. One for Glendale, one for Peoria, one for wherever we conduct our business. So I think we're going to have a lot of non-compliance because people aren't going to understand that. If I'm the yard guy and I'm conducting business in Goodyear, I'm not going to get my license. So I guess that's if I would like to see it, maybe some more substantial carve-outs for those type of businesses. I'm just kind of worried that we're in order to solve the problem, we're creating another problem. So that's my concern.
So more of you have a physical location within the city, place of business. This is not unusual. Other cities do require licenses for vendors that come in and out of the city.
Yeah, and I suppose
mean,
I have to
what
pay
is
it because I'm a
modeled-
vendor
yeah,
in other
yeah.
cities, so I do pay my license, so
Mhm.
I'm good. And then my last question would be, for ease for people, is this something someone will be able to go online and fill out at some point?
Jared question, but
Because I know I do that for Glendale and
I-
Peoria, I just
I-
go right online and Surprise, you just go right online.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Loretano. Today, our business registration is online, and we're looking to take that same model and tweak it for the new license requirements. But our intention is to use an online system, yes.
Okay, and then someone who's working at home, but that's not their physical, like, I work at home for a week, and I'm conducting business in Goodyear from my computer, but that's not really my office, it's just my home, but I'm conducting business. How does that go, or am I just down in the weeds, and you need to pull me back up? I'm in the
don't
weeds.
think that's the intent of the ordinance, if you're
Okay.
working from home and the business is being conducted elsewhere.
Okay,
That's
just
not- That's
checking.
not the aim of the ordinance, no.
Okay, I just don't want to go after the dog walkers and the makeup sales.
That is not going to be our focus area.
You good? Okay. Councilmember Campbell?
I just want to be really careful with our small business folks and with the home-based businesses, because that is our lifeblood. And I know the hysteria of the sober homes has got everybody all worked up, but let's just not overdo it or make a special allocation for those businesses. And we can't have really expensive business license, because it's difficult for some of these small businesses to rake up an additional $75 to even buy a license from you, and then they have to get one from Avondale, and then they have to get one from Surprise, because they're landscaper businesses, and they go where the business is. So we don't want to put them out of business.
It's a valid point. I think, the current business registration fee is $75, so we're staying with the same $75. If you look around, Avondale's is $65. Buckeye has a scale of $40 to $100. Surprise is $168.
Wow.
And Glendale's $25. So, like I said, we're kind of right in the middle, but
Wow.
certainly recognize it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Vice Mayor?
I wanted to ask if our penalties are consistent with other cities.
That is a good question. I don't think I have that data for you.
Okay.
Philip, do you? Philip did a lot of the drafting. No?
I'm sorry, what was the answer?
No, we
You
don't have that
didn't know?
data,
Okay.
no.
Yeah, I would like to know. And then also, can penalties be waived for extenuating circumstances such as what Councilmember Loretano's talking about, the home-based business that it wasn't aware? I mean, do we have any flexibility?
In the code enforcement world, we typically try to get people into compliance before you move to the enforcement. So usually we try to make that effort before there's any citations. That's the best answer. We're going to handle it the same as we would any
Case
code
by
enforcement
case. Okay.
matter.
All right, so you'll let us know about the
We'll
penalty?
double check the penalties, but we did look at primarily a civil enforcement versus a criminal enforcement. A lot of the license program codes go straight to penalty or to criminal and handle it in that way. We didn't want to go straight to criminal. We wanted to try to handle things civilly first, but I can see if we can get some of those schedules from the other cities as well.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hampton?
I had a couple more questions. So just clarification. So yeah, so I would also agree. I don't think we need to do some carve-outs or something like that, because the people that are doing good business in Goodyear are probably not going to apply for a license. So if I just don't apply for a license and then I get caught not having a license, is there penalties up to the point of this change here?
If you
Or is it when I've been notified?
You get a warning.
I get a warning first, and then I can pay my $75?
Our intent would be to get you into compliance with a warning, but if you do refuse to apply for a license,
Yeah.
the noted penalty is $250.
Okay. Yeah, so I just see a lot of businesses just not applying for licenses. And I also think, I remember, this is a long time ago, I think there was something in the valley where like lemonade stand
Yeah.
got shut down because they didn't have a business license, and so they couldn't have a lemonade stand in the city, and I think it was Girl Scouts or something like that,
I
so.
remember that.
So I'm just thinking, is that kind of stuff that they would need a business license? Any child that sets up a lemonade stand, for example?
Again, I don't think our goal is to shut down lemonade stands.
I'm just saying, I'm just
I-
going the
This
extent
is
of-
really
extent of
starting
it.
to feel like a law school exam in here.
I know.
But we will certainly make sure that that's covered.
Yeah.
If we need to make any adjustments, we certainly can make adjustments.
Yeah.
But this is, consistent with what other cities are doing in the valley and to try to get the program up and running.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know if I can support it as it is right now until we get some of those carve-outs. So, or some other stipulations in there that take into account, like the home-based businesses and things like that, so. But I still want to go for the intent. I just think we need to also have some carve-outs or make accommodations for the businesses that are legitimate, so. Thank you.
Councilmember Gillis?
I think it's important to remember that the reason that we're doing this and the reason this came up was because of these homes that we're talking about. I had a small business for 15 years, and I had a business license. Every single year, I paid my $75 because that's what it was at the time. And I wouldn't even have thought of saying to somebody, I'm just not going to do that if that's the law in the city. That's the rule. So I wouldn't have done that. If you do that, then my feeling is, then you deserve to be fined. So that's the deal. If we're going to do this, the broad spectrum, then that's what we're going to do to protect the citizens of the city once again. That's my feeling on it.
Councilmember Stipp?
Mayor, given some of the discussion, I'd like to make a motion to table this until we find out if there's a carve-out possible.
The question, I appreciate that. If we don't have something, then we can't regulate the sober homes either.
I'm only asking to table it for like a week, or however long it's going to take Rourke and the staff to rewrite a carve-out. I don't need a date certain, but I also I'm not going to say table it forever, so I would look to the attorney to say a week, 2 weeks, because we're not going to enforce this thing until July 1st anyway, so
July
we've
1st.
got a little bit of time.
Okay.
So it seems like the concerns are the home-based businesses, make sure they're not overregulated, which I think we have some carve-outs, so maybe we can refine that to businesses that are generally open to the public, because it seems like there's some concerns about people who have businesses at home but maybe actually conduct the business at other locations. That we can handle. We can certainly take a look at the lemonade stand and which I think, I was looking at, I think we have some definition to casual activities or sales that may apply, but maybe we can refine that a little bit to make sure that that's covered as well.
And again, I appreciate, maybe that's what we need to do, but we don't want to put it off too far because we've got to take care of the sober living deal.
Yeah.
But the question I have, can we put, without discriminatory, can we put something on there that says sales of X? You know what I mean? People making sales X of, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, for the very small stuff when you're talking about, lemonade stands or some of the others. Can you put something along those lines on the home base to make it so it takes most of those type of things?
Anticipate annual sales in excess of blank.
Of blank.
Maybe.
That way, I mean, if you're making over X, I think 75 is probably not a big deal, but if you're doing small time like the lemonade stands, et cetera, you don't want to touch them at all. So maybe you put a cap on that and they would do an affidavit. I'm just throwing this out, I'm no attorney. Just throwing this out as a cap that they would do an affidavit that their sales are under, so they would be exempt from getting the license. Just a thought on how you might want to address it.
Okay.
Can we, then, so what's the deal here?
The motion is to table it for the attorney to continue to do additional work on it.
How long is it going to take, Rory?
I think our next council meeting is next week.
I definitely want to do it for sober living, so.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I don't want to derail the entire thing, but we do need to talk about this carve-out, so. And I don't want to make my motion that it's date certain, because if it takes you 9 days instead of 7 days.
Why don't you just, if you just make a motion to table,
Yeah,
and we'll
that's
bring
what
it
I'm
back when it's ready, but I think it's going to be pretty quick, because I think.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. I want to make a
Council's
motion to
articulated
table.
what their concerns are, and I think there's probably some common sense fixes to address those issues,
Okay, so we got
I think
a
it was good
motion. Do we have
input
a
and
second?
feedback.
Mayor, we actually have it on the vote. It's already here. It's on the front.
Say that again?
So on your voting screens,
Oh, okay.
you actually have it situated, so it does say motion to table the item.
Okay.
So if you want us to go ahead and open that vote, we can go ahead and do that.
Okay, open the vote. Okay, we got 7-0, and you can bring it back as quick as you can to address it for us, so that, number one, we can address that sober living. We don't want that thing to go on too long.
Well, we certainly want to get in place, hopefully by July 1st, whatever form
Okay.
we eventually arrive at. So we'll try to get it back as quick as possible.
All right, thank you. We got to the part, does the council have any comments, commendations? Remember, we got something after this.
Just real quick.
Okay.
Are you going to talk about the award-winning departments that we've had the last couple of weeks?
I have not got that for public, but we've had two departments.
We've had two big ones.
Yes, we had economic development and digital communications that both won awards last couple of weeks, and they've been in our manager's memo. So
Congratulations.
outstanding departments.
So I want the public to know what's happening. I mean, we all know, and that's great, but I'm going to look these two to know, at least I paid attention, which is not unusual. But congratulations. I think the work that everyone's doing, getting recognized by your peers is very important, so thank you.
Anything else? City manager, you have anything?
Well, we had our first Goodyear Night Market held yesterday. We had over 2,000 guests enjoying live music and local vendors. 50 vendors and 10 food trucks were on site with over $40,000 in revenue generated. And the favorite was Anita's Farm, who offered a variety of vegetables and fruits. So this will be running through the month of June.
Okay, thank you. Well, we've got the next meeting will be May 6, 2024, 5 p.m. Now, a vote may be held to call an executive session for the following pursuant to ARS 38-431-.03A34, discussion and consultation with the city attorney, city manager for legal advice to consider its position and instruct its attorney regarding the city's position regarding contracts that are subject of negotiations related to intergovernmental agreements for joint use permit projects. Whew, that's a mouthful there. I would like a motion and a second. Got a motion and a second to go into executive. Now we will go into executive session.
You got to vote.
Oh, we got a vote? Of course. Let's get the vote in. 7-0. We're going back over